Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Be Kindled. My name is Guinea Kaukuro, and I'm quite excited today because I almost didn't record, but here I am, and it's happening. On this episode, we'll be talking about toxicity. What does it mean, especially in the area of the workplace? But I want you not to restrict yourself to the workplace because this has become a very hot topic on social media. And funny enough, in the last few weeks, I've had a few people ask me about their work environment and give me real life case studies of what they're going through and ask my opinion on them. And so I decided to do a topic on this. Toxicity has become a very hot topic in recent times with the rise of, psychotherapy, well-being, we're talking about work-life balance, talking about trauma, and it is something that even if it's not the workplace that is your concern today, think about it about life. Are you in a toxic relationship or a toxic friendship or a toxic family system or a toxic church? Where are you when it comes to toxicity? Are you a toxic person? Because systems are made up of people. So if you identify that something is toxic, it means that either you or the people there are perpetuating a certain culture. And I'm hoping that with this video, you can curb it, identify it first of all, and then nip it in the bud and curb it as much as possible. So I'm going to be giving examples around the workplace, but again, you can extrapolate. But we will start by saying, what is a toxic environment? What does it look like? What are toxic people or a toxic environment? And then we'll go on from there. So let's start with the definition of toxicity. I went literal this time. I went to the dictionary to understand what is toxicity, and I really liked this particular definition because it was eye-opening and it made sense on how this can be, applied in our different areas of life. So toxicity was defined by the dictionary to be a very harmful or unpleasant situation or person that is pervasive and insidious. So it's very harmful or unpleasant, it's pervasive and insidious. These are really strong adjectives, and I'm going to break down what each of them mean so that when you say that, maybe you say someone is toxic or you're in a toxic environment, you understand what you're saying. So harmful means that it's bad, it's unpleasant, it's poisonous, it's dangerous. So a toxic environment or person is dangerous, it's poisonous, and you know what poison does. At the end of the day, it is aimed at killing or maiming something. It is pervasive. What pervasive means that it spreads widely, so it doesn't stay in one place. So if you find someone or an environment that is toxic, truth is, it is only a matter of time. It will spread even to you if you're not careful. So toxicity spreads. You're in a toxic relationship, you find that you start acting up in a very weird way without knowing that it's the law of, relationships, where they say, what's that word? Evil communication corrupts good manners. It's pervasive. And the last adjective that was used is that it's insidious, meaning that it's gradual, it's subtle, it's a slow fade, but it's very harmful in its effect. So it works like yeast, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. It's not like fuel that is, where they tell you, highly flammable. Once it catches, no, it seeps in. So many times you don't even know when it's happening to you. You don't know that you are in a toxic place if you're not careful. So I'm hoping that This is making sense to you. Now, what makes a workplace toxic? A toxic work environment is where the conditions of work are harmful, you know, to your overall well-being, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, and you find that when people say things like, it's Monday, and their heart starts beating, you start palpitating on a Sunday night, or once it's Sunday, you're afraid of Monday. It's either you have internalized anxiety, or the workplace you are in has created that anxiety in you. So it could be two ways. And if it is the other way around, where the workplace has created that anxiety, it is not good in the long run for your overall well-being. Now, we need to understand that companies don't set out to be toxic, to be honest, but they are enablers of toxicity in a work environment. That if they are not there, you're already telling yourself you don't care, and anything that happens. So you will know that the likelihood of toxicity is high in an environment where there's no structure, there are not clear processes, there are not clear role sorts. So you're not really clear on who does what. Sometimes like share any work. And so there are no boundaries. There are no boundaries in the scope of work. There are no boundaries. It's just like people are working. The policies are not clear. For example, now, if you're not clear on what hiring traits, your leadership traits, if you're not clear on the leadership values that your company stands for, not just as an organization, a legal entity, but what you want to see in your leaders, such that those values translate in your people, processes, and the life cycle of the employees, from the sourcing to the hiring to performance to setting goals. What leadership behaviors are you infusing? If you are not clear on that, the likelihood that at recruitment you will not be able to pick when someone is not the right fit for the organization is high. And then you will bring in a toxic person that then creates a toxic environment. Because like I said, environments are not made up of ghosts. People make them toxic. So you need to have those processes in place that picks it out at the core, the first instance, or by the time they get in, it's not, they either adapt to how you want your people to be, to what you want to see in your organization, or they leave. So your processes, your systems, your policies, taking time to break those down and translate it in the organization and transmit it and repeatedly train it and let it be infused into the existing ways of working. That helps you mitigate any risks of toxicity, and reduce it significantly. You see very often toxicity being an issue in one-man businesses and founder-led businesses because they lack structure. And so you find that it's pervasive in those types of environments. And so if you're a founder, I know you're doing a lot. One of the a lot you should also be doing is, if you want to build a lasting organization where talent wants to be part of you, like you are employer of choice for good talent, for sensible people, not just people that are looking for work and anywhere they will enter. You have to have the right culture that attracts these kinds of people. Yeah? The other thing I would tell you on why it is important for organizations to pay close attention to this is because there's a direct correlation between, a highly engaged and productive workforce and business growth. According to Gallup, organizations and firms with highly engaged employees or employee experience have up to 21 to 23% business growth, and higher profitability. And then when it comes to even employee retention and turnover, they're able to retain employees up to 18 to as high as 43%. And you all just see that there's better safety, psychological safety in the organization. And again, like I said, an engaged workforce leads to a productive workforce, and it leads to a more committed workforce that they are able to innovate, they're able to bring their best to work, they're able to bring in customer service the way you want it, and that translates into sales, translates into high revenue. So that's why it's important to pay attention to this. You want to attract the best talent, but at the same time, you want to be able to retain the best talent, and you want to be able to translate this into, naira and kobo or dollar and pounds, wherever you are in the world. So it's very important. It's not one of those things. Say everybody says I'm toxic. It's because it's good for your business. Okay. Now, so how will I know then? You may ask. How will I know if I'm in a toxic workplace? Again, if it is relationship that is your cup of tea, you can extrapolate. If it is you assessing yourself if you're a toxic person, very important. If it is the church, and then you think about wherever you are, what does toxic mean? And hey, I don't think there's any place in this world that involves humans that has 100%, because humans are very dynamic. But again, there will be enablers that will either make the radar of toxicity high or reduce it significantly and helps to make the work sweeter. And that's very possible. Let me tell you, some of my very best friends I have met at work. God has been faithful to me. Why? I told my former HRD once, I told her that if there's anything you did for us, and this is an organization I've left a long time ago, I told her, when I look at my friend circle, 96% are from this period I stayed in that organization. Why? Because they were hiring quality, sensible people. There was something about how we hired, And so I told her, if you didn't give us anything, you gave us each other. It was such a powerful moment because, I was just reflecting on the impact she has had on me. She hasn't been my leader in about 12 years, but the lasting impression she had made in my personal life came from work, because we had a thriving culture. We had a culture that brought in people, that celebrated each other, that wanted people to succeed. Doesn't mean there was no office politics, but predominantly you had good people that made work fun. And even though you can't have 100%, because we are human beings, I wanted to go to work every day, So it is very possible. It will take time, but that everything that is good takes time to build. Okay, let's go into it. What are the traits of a toxic environment? When we're talking about toxicity, it's usually not easy to point out, but it really is in how it makes you feel. Your feelings are data. Yeah, there's not really a checklist, if I'm honest, because what is toxic to you may not be toxic to another person. Some people thrive in places where, they're shouting at them. It's like, maybe because of their experiences as children, they are used to being shouted on. Some people thrive in manipulative behavior. So what is toxic to you may not be toxic to another person. Some people may be thriving in what you deem toxic environment while you are suffering. So it's, to be honest, you just need to pay attention to how this place makes you feel. Your feelings are data. Interrogate them. Ask yourself, Why am I feeling like this? When things happen, I do this a lot. I go into a place and I just observe for the first 5 minutes. How am I feeling? What's my experience? For instance, in a restaurant, what am I experiencing now? How am I feeling? What is the check? I do it a lot. I enter church, I'm like, what's the mood? Maybe my mood, maybe their mood. How am I feeling? What's the experience I'm getting? What is it? Check yourself. And then you will know what it is that is, causing your radar to go off. Or you can't generalize. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. The first thing I would say is, where you find that leaders are above the law, it's very likely that is going to result in a toxic environment. So when I mean leaders are above the law, what I mean there is a lack of transparency, and accountability for maybe the founder. And there, maybe HR is just a figurehead. They can't hold them accountable. They don't have the, audacity. They're not even given the empowerment to hold the leader accountable, or to shape culture, as it were. So a place where the leader is almighty, because people are fallible, and if this is not a good person, it's very likely that it will permeate through the organization. So a place where the leaders are above the law and there are no, what you would say, ethical checks and balances. Also, where you find that there's abusive situations or supervisions where, leaders relate to employees in a very abusive manner, in the sense that they talk to them rudely, they use the abusive terms on them, the F word, they humiliate them, and people feel stifled. If they make a mistake, they feel that they will die. That is a very toxic environment, very likely. Another way to see abuse is where a leader expects unrealistic, results from you. They have unrealistic expectations of you. You're expected to work without stopping. You are expected to work from when you wake up until when you sleep, and then you still give them your weekends. And then, if you do not show up, you're sidelined, or you are, you just find that people are treating you some way because the leader has seen that you are somehow, just you're afraid of saying no. So you're having to work overtime without pay, unrealistic work hours. It affects your physical health and your mental health. See, there are times at work where you would work weekends, especially when it's their crunch time. If you're in finance, for instance, month end, year end, quarter end, you will work. If you chose that field, you will work by those times. But if it is like it is every time, then there's an issue. There should always be downtime. No human being can be always on. So you should be able to have downtimes. When you get to work, you put in your time and then do it diligently. And then there will be outliers where you have to show up. You have to show up as if, this is crunch time. And you do it. But then after that, you go back to normal. So if it's every time and it's like you don't have your life, it's very likely that you're in a toxic environment. Surely if it now breeds fear, you're afraid to tell them, I'm not available at this time, because you don't know how to look. That's not a good sign. Another thing is bullying. There's passive aggression. People isolate people in how they deal with things. It may not be physical violence, but bullying has a way of, it's a narcissistic way of doing things, and it affects the emotional and mental well-being of employees, especially where it's pervasive in the organization and where it's tolerated. I remember one of my first jobs as a lawyer. I was working in a firm, and it was an open office. It was, founder led. It was a consulting firm. And my biggest issue there, I was very young. I was 21 or 22. Yes. But if there's anything I cannot stand, is bullying. You can't bully me, you know. You can't bully me, but you also can bully someone in front of me. It's one of the values I uphold very passionately. And so in that scenario, it was my first job, more or less, after service. And in the open office, we had this, IT head who will berate his employees, use the F word on them, tell them they don't have sense, they are stupid, literal, use those words on them in an open office, and they cannot answer back. And because it was a new organization they were building, it felt like they needed him. And so people can hear that this is wrong, but they were tolerating it. My boss was head of legal admin and HR. And I went to her. No, actually, I didn't go to her. But something happened where I didn't insult this man, but it came to a point where I asked him a question very nicely. I said, this thing you've done, if I do it to you, will you like it? He was so mad, so upset that the audacity of this change to say anything. But I just asked him, would you like it? Because the circular went round that everyone should be responsible for this. And in this moment, you're not being responsible. You're looking like you're above the law. And I was the one to enforce this policy on that day. I asked him, this thing you've done, would you like it? He was upset. And the funny thing is, he escalated to my boss, escalated to the founder. And I told them, you are here when this guy does these things. No one holds him accountable. And they asked that I apologized. Long story short, the day I was supposed to apologize, I got an offer for a bigger, better, sweeter job. I resigned on the spot. They were going to do a town hall where I then apologized to him after he insulted my father, insulted me. That was a workplace where I knew I could not stay. I stayed 3 months, by the way. So you see, I couldn't stay there. That is an example of where it is pervasive, it is tolerated. For whatever reason, people are not held to the same standards. That is not the kind of workplace you want to be in. Whether it's sexual harassment, whether it's harassment of sexual harassment, religious harassment, disability, where people are not treated fairly, where there's bias, where there's favoritism. My dear, truth is, work, you spend most of your time at work. 40 hours a week is no joke. So if you're going every day to a place where you feel marginalized, you feel disenfranchised, you don't feel like you can bring your best self to work, it's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah? So that's an example of a workplace where it's likely it's a toxic place. Also, where you find that people are belittled in meetings, you hear underhanded comments. People are, there's always the way conflict is managed is very, very passive aggressive. That's a toxic workplace, likely, because people should be able to give each other feedback, constructive feedback, and not carry their issues to the work meetings and then start going at it. So that is toxic behavior, and if not curbed, can lead to toxicity in the workplace. Let us not forget again that toxicity is it started with somebody tolerating it. So if you're a leader and you have the ability to curb this in your team, doesn't even mean in the organization, in your team, please do. I've worked in places where the organization can be termed toxic because it had a number of these elements. But the teams, there were so many teams that would say, my leader is good. I like working for my leader. Why? Because created a safe haven for their people. So if you have that opportunity, create that experience for people where they can come and be their best selves. They can have psychological safety. We'll talk about that in another day. They are able to challenge without being afraid of the repercussions, and they are treated with respect, and their dignity is not eroded because they are coming to work for you. People should not feel small because they are working for your organization. People should not feel like they don't have a choice if they are working for your organization. On the other hand, we also have toxic individuals, people that don't want to work, but they are doing manipulative tactics. That's toxicity, and it should be curbed. It should be expunged. So if you have someone that they don't like to be called out for bad behavior, but they find a way to, manipulate the system. You can see the traits. Again, it's how it makes you feel. Sometimes you can't really see it in a checklist, but you know how it's landing. You're like, this person, there's something off. If you think really clearly, it means that there's probably a behavior that is off-putting that they are perpetrating in the team. If someone is a bully, if someone is, very conscious of, who do you think I am? There are many people like that in the team, and they want some form of respect. And if you don't give them, they sideline you because, they are the popular people in the team. Those kinds of behaviors, we've talked about it. If you are that kind of person, you're a toxic person, So, what I have described would apply to an organization, could apply to a relationship, it could apply to you as a person. So if you're the person that uses humor to berate people, you're toxic. You're dealing with something, you should actually check yourself. If you're the kind of person that people cannot come to you to say, I don't agree with this, can we do it this way? Something is wrong with you. If you're the kind of person who has a chip on their shoulder and you want to be respected, but you don't give due respect to everyone, that's toxic behavior. So before you raise your hand and say, my line manager is toxic, ask yourself, are you also toxic? And if you've been in environments that are toxic, it will be foolish for you to find yourself in a leadership position after complaining about toxicity and repeat the same pattern. And don't think you will not repeat it, because what we behold, we become. So it takes a conscious level of understanding to say, this behavior, I don't want to be it. And learn that you are not that kind of person. And make sure you're not that kind of person in the future. Many of us went to boarding houses, and when you're bullied as a junior student, you look forward to when you are a senior student, and then you want to bully because you were bullied. It's the same pattern. You are perpetrating toxicity. So if you find yourself in leadership positions, be the breaker, the one that says, not on my watch. People will thrive here. People will be developed. People will get to know themselves because you carry light, because you are an agent of light. So that's where darkness will not be able to permeate. I don't want this video to be too long, but the reflection for today is, go through the list, reflect. My workplace, how does it make me feel? My job, my church, my relationship, how does it make me feel? Am I excited to go there? And the second thing you can ask yourself is, what about me is toxic? Many of us are living with trauma we don't know of, and it shows up in work. We don't keep it in the book. We are one human being, body, soul, spirit, one person. So we don't drop it at home, then come with our laptop bag. We come with all that. So what part of me can be termed toxic? Am I toxic under pressure? When I'm under pressure as a leader, do I transfer aggression? Am I able to calm down and hear my people? Do I have a chip on my shoulder? Do I like feedback? Ask yourself those questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.